Hey, Yanni, thank you for coming in. You've got a remarkable background. Of course, you did very well at the World Inaugural Cup for WITSA, the World Innovation Technology Services Alliance, and much more. So thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise and your insights with our audience.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Stephen.
So, Yanni, if you can describe maybe some inflection points in your life, and it could have been when you were 3 or 5 years old, it could have been something happened within your family, outside your family, maybe inside school, it could have been the first job you had. What are these three inflection points that made you who you are today?
I think one of the experience that I very commonly shared with people around me about why I'm here today and also why I am doing what I am doing today was kind of dated back all the way to when I was 16. So my high school teacher actually, and my English teacher showed us this documentary about it's called The Inconvenience Truth by Al Gore. That was the time when I really got to learn about global warming. And also at that time, it kind of gave me an aha moment that, oh, that's gonna be something that I feel like I want to be part of. So at that point of time when I was 16, I was very eco-conscious in terms of the energy I use, in terms of the resources I use. So that's kind of the very first point when I started out global warming as a thing. And then the second point came to me when I was at university. So I was a very active kind of student in this world youth-led organization called ISAC. So at that time, I attended this national conference, and I remember the facilitator was asking of doing in the next 5 to 10 years time. So, and for some reason during that time, I was introduced to SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and I think we were one of the very first batch of university students that were introduced to this global goals. So at that time, when the facilitator asked, I also wrote down something about, okay, in the next 5 to 10 years time, I want to be doing something that's contributing to creating a positive impact to the world. And somehow later on, when I went into my career, I went into different kind of jobs as well. I started off as a mechanical engineering student, but somehow I knew that I wanted to be doing something more meaningful. And the reason why I wanted to study engineering at the first place was because I feel like this skill set is going to help me to create something that could change the world. So somehow this kind of theme kind of led me throughout my growing journey. And when I was, I think 3, 4 years ago, through family friends, I got to know my co-founders today. And at that time, they were looking for a co-founder that could really help to pivot the brand and bring the brand on a kind of different scale. And that's when my sets really kind of come into play. And I felt like that was a calling, and I started embarking on this journey with Entomal Biotech.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting. So you had an interest in sort of climate and the environment from Al Gore, and just that moved you. And then you also had this introduction to SDGs, and you thought that that was a very calling, so very much aligned with your interest with Al Gore and the messaging he was putting out. You have an engineering background, so were you always interested in engineering, things like that in school?
I think growing up, my parents grew up in a very art and commerce study background. But somehow, and me and my siblings, we were all very good in maths and science and physics. So physics and maths specifically were the two subjects that I was really good at. So somehow during the time when I was given the chance to pick what I want to study for my further studies, engineering really came to my mind. And out of so many different engineering, mechanical engineering becoming, I mean, being one of the broadest engineering course came as the most obvious decision for me. And I remember at that time as a female student, we were, I think, only 10% of us were ladies. So it was very tough to start with, being in a kind of co-ed education system back then. But somehow kind of lived a really good university life, getting familiar with working with very diverse backgrounds group of people, and that really helped me to kind of how my working style is today as well.
Yeah, in engineering, typically the female population is smaller, and this would be in Malaysia, right? So
I studied in the UK. So I studied mechanical engineering in the University of Sheffield.
I see. So um, what was that experience like? Because then it's outside of your culture, right? And you're sort of your homeland. So what was that like?
Yeah. So in Malaysia, I actually went to a Chinese school. So everything was kind of studied literally in Mandarin, including all my exams. So going to the UK and studying engineering, first of all, language was a huge barrier for me, even though we learned English at school, but I wasn't brought up in a fully English speaking environment. So at that time, that culture shock was a very big challenge when I first arrived. And yes, even though we watch a lot of English media, British media, but somehow being surrounded by British accent was a huge challenge at that time. Really couldn't fully understand people around me, but also at the same time, converting everything I learned into English was a very big challenge entering my university life. And obviously, it took me some time to get used to, really took me some time to be comfortable speaking English and even having English as my first language when I think that experience really opened up my perspective in terms of how I view the world, how I view humanity, how I view just people from different backgrounds, a different upbringing. It makes me realize that ultimately, no matter what cultural backgrounds that we're from, we're all the same and we all have a kind heart that we want to do good. And that makes me realize that we just have one goal, which is to create better things for the world we live in.
So you get this education in mechanical engineering out of the UK. Then what did you do right after you graduated?
I actually got a job not far from where I studied in Leeds, and I was hired as a bilingual clinical system analyst. So I was getting paid flying all the way to China to conduct a lot of kind of business research and then on the ground with our clients in China. But then I took a gap year afterwards. I got some British pound savings. So I went actually backpacking on my own. So I spent about 3 months in Italy and Turkey. And at that time, I was also doing a volunteering project as a kind of young girl backpacking solo. And that was the time when I also got to volunteer as a teacher and did some cultural exchange sharing with students in Sicily, Palermo. So I got to see that due to the kind of national environment in Italy, not a lot of resources are being put into the south of Italy. And a lot of times that creates less opportunities for people who come from this region of the country. And my experience kind of helped to bring in a different perspective in terms of cultural, in terms of worldviews when I went in to work with all these high school students. So that was one thing that I was really proud of because not only I got to share in terms of cultural experience, but I think one thing that I really learned during that time is um, a lot of warmth that I felt from human, from which I never really felt before. And that made me have a more compassionate view when it comes to a lot of things surrounding me, being people that I work with, or be it the nature that we are surrounded by, whether or not we are doing things that are harmful or actually helpful to the environment.
Okay, so you have a job within the UK, and then you and it involves kind of translating things and also act as a bridging person as
Not
well.
exactly. So I was working in a very kind of client-facing role at that time. So even though I study engineering, I was always very good with people. So that led me into kind of a slightly more customer-facing role at that time, working with on-the-ground clients, coming from a software kind of company in the UK providing services in the US. So after my gap year, I actually came back to Malaysia due to family reasons. My parents got sick; they wanted someone to kind of help take care of family. So I came back and realized, oh, Malaysia has so many more opportunities right here. And seeing how Southeast Asia as an emerging economy, so many opportunities are kind of growing and booming. So I thought, okay, I might as well stay in Asia and explore what are the kind of really booming opportunities out there that require youth to be the leaders. And then for some reason, my career path kind of pivoted into a little bit of marketing, and I was working very directly with clients. So I was prior to what I am doing right now. I am also in biotech for some reason. I was in a health and wellness industry, and also fashion industry. So everything kind of very diverse, but somehow the transferable skills that I got is problem solving for sure, coming from an engineering background, but also the people skills. So working with a lot of different types of people, being able to kind of communicate with kind of different backgrounds, or even from people from technical, people from the being very layman. And then when my opportunity came with the kind of more impact focused work, I think that skill sets really helped to shine through and really helps bring the brand even better as well.
So you had this opportunity to work in the client-facing role, but it's in the software field. So it's a software company, you were saying.
Yes, it was.
And what kind of software was it?
So it was a clinical software. They were one of the bigger um, a software provider for NHS back in the days. I'm not sure how they're performing now because I've left the UK for quite some time, but they basically host all the clinical information of patients around the UK, and they were also doing the same in China.
I see. And because you're multilingual, then it's a good sort of position. Plus, it has a technical requirement, and you have an engineering background, so that would marry quite well. Did you study programming then when you were in engineering?
Not exactly. Mechanical, we were very hands-on with. There were three kind of key subjects that we learned: solids, liquids, and also thermodynamics. So everything to do with how we build or design the world, heavily involved with mechanical engineering. But with mechanical engineering, my kind of focus has always been very biology or bioengineering related. Anything to do with humans, so all these what are they called again? Biomedical fields, or including all these sports related science, including, I remember my final year project, I was doing the study about grip and how it affects how we hold different types of packaging. So I did some motion capturing. So anything that revolves around human betterment was something that I was really passionate about back in the day. So I learned about all these MRI machines, CT scan machines. Yeah, it was very fun, medical related stuff.
I see. So then that would then marry with your job with the software company. It was software, but it had a medical component to it. So that would fit with your biomedical sort of interest when you were studying engineering. Was your undergrad in engineering as well? So when you got a master's in engineering, so you got an undergraduate degree in engineering?
Yes. So in the UK, they have a 4-year master's, integrated master's program. So I completed my master's straight away within 4 years' time. I think that's the difference between, I think, US and the UK.
I see. So you could do an integrated sort of bachelor's and master's at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't graduate with a bachelor's. It was a 4th year kind of master's graduation straight away.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's different.
Mhm.
So, how did you get involved then with the biotech company?
Yeah. So, because at that time when I was living in Italy, I was living a very minimalist zero waste lifestyle. And when I came back to Malaysia for good, I started doing zero waste lifestyle, so composting at home and very minimalist and well, minimal waste as well at that time. So I was doing composting at home, and somehow my parents' friend, they know that I was doing composting at home, so they were asking me, "Hey, we have this insight. Do you want to try it out? Like it's a very good tool for composting." At that time, I was very disgusted by it because as a girl, we don't usually play with worms or larvae in that sense. Plus, it looked like flies, and the what we call usually as what was another word for it? Maggot. So it wasn't the most appealing thing to use when it comes to composting. But somehow at that time, I didn't use that as a way for composting either. But somehow, some years later, that kind of connection reignited again. And that's when I really had the opportunity to dig deep of what the Larvae does and how it actually contributes to the world and what kind of impact it creates. And that's also when I realized, oh, this composting technique is actually very easy. It's not as disgusting as I thought. And that's when I started diving deep into the business and how the business to grow and grow in other kind of strategies.
Right. So you got into Larvae, but there's this Endemol biotech. How did you get involved with them specifically?
Yeah. So at that time, two of my other co-founders, they were running it as an engineering consulting firm. So we were consulting a lot of international clients when it comes to any type of black soldier fly upscaling. So they needed engineering team to kind of build, design, and set up the entire kind of businesses for them. So at that time, they've also studied a lot of different black soldier fly businesses around the world. And we saw that BSF is actually a huge playground, especially when it comes to waste management as well as animal feed. So the reason I joined, funnily enough, because my co-founders managed to join into an accelerator program, but both of them, neither of them are confident enough to be on stage. So they invite, can you represent us and help us to learn together as how do we grow our company from or pivot our company from being an engineering consulting firm into a startup. So at that time, for me who has completely no startup background, I thought, okay, this is a very good opportunity for me to learn, as well as contributing to something that I'm truly passionate about. So we kind of embarked on this journey to kind of pivot the business. And that's when we start to learn about it. And in the end, the accelerator program, we won as one of the top 5 winners. And that really opened up a lot of opportunity to us to understand about the startup world and understand how fundraising works. And we got a lot of mentorship around along the way as well. And that's kind of how we see how businesses should scale up rather than staying as a normal SMEs. And through that experience, it really helped us to get connected with a lot of our potential clients. And from that, it helps us to grow our traction. And that kind of have helped us to kind of grow to where we are today as well. So that was our very first journey together with my co-founders, thanks to the Accelerator program. Because of that, all 3 of us started to learn about how fundraising works, first of all, but also looking at how we can strategize our business much better in a way that not just running as a small scale, consistent, slow growth company, but something that is truly scalable, especially with the impact that we all envision, which is food security and climate change impact.
So can you describe what your company does and why are you different?
Yeah. So a lot of times when it comes to black soldier fly businesses, most players in the market will use it as an animal feed. So, well, in a way, we're saying that they are farming insects. So we call them the insect farmers. But for us, we position ourselves slightly differently. The whole bioconversion process still produce insect larvae as well as fertilizers, but we are now positioning ourselves more of an upstream player. So we do waste management where unlike other players who buys in agricultural waste, we are finding food waste generators coming from commercial units to convert this existing food waste that usually goes to landfill into affordable, high quality animal feed and fertilizers. So the biggest difference is that our downstream products can be significantly cheaper as compared to other players. And also we're coming in making money from upstream when they are paying for the upstream feedstock. So with that, we need technology to be able to tie all this up together. And that's where our engineering consulting expertise really helps us to kind of tie the entire business model together. Because we have had experience when it comes to doing scale operations, we know that the challenge will then be finding or obtaining all these different licenses and clients in order to turn what usually goes to landfill, which is the food waste, into our and then turn them into resources that we can sell at a much cheaper price. And along the way, we also work very closely with different government bodies, and that helps us to present ourselves to a lot of government authorities, which make them realize that, hey, Malaysia actually has this kind of technology that very much aligned with what Malaysia wants to do. So we are now being endorsed by the National Biotech Policy when it comes to sustainable animal feed. We are also supported by the local land authority. We call it KPKT in Malaysia, when it comes to treating food waste in a more sustainable way. So along the way, we're also getting a lot of local councils to support us, and getting a lot more private entities, public listed companies or MNCs, when it comes to their ESG, how we can then also help align with their ESG reporting goals, or some of their internal SDG visions as well.
Okay, so let's back up a bit, because I would say almost everybody in my audience, probably almost 100%, they don't know what a black soldier fly is. They don't know what the larva does. They don't know why this matters. They don't know how it's used at a fundamental level. They don't know what the byproducts are. So you're going to have to step us through, what is black soldier fly larva? Why does it matter? What does it do? How does it differ from other sort of systems? So almost like a short little 2-minute, 3-minute tutorial about, how does this thing work?
Yeah, absolutely. So with black soldier flies, on its own, the fly looks slightly bigger than a normal housefly. So normal housefly has like a fat, round kind of figure. Black soldier fly is slightly more slimmer, as well as longer. So they look slightly bigger than normal housefly. And from there, the most important thing that we want to harvest from them is actually not the flies itself, but the larvae. So they have a very short life cycle as compared to housefly. And one of the most important thing about housefly and black soldier fly is that black soldier fly is completely harmless. We know normal housefly carries pathogens around, and they are usually hanging around places that are dirty, and hence carrying a lot of pathogens. But with black soldier fly, usually in the nature, they exist only around, well, in deep forests, first of all, and they usually lay eggs on dead bodies or rotten fruits or vegetables. So they don't usually appear to civilized world as we do, unless maybe you have a composting means, and sometimes you come across black soldier fly larvae. But what is the most important difference is that because black soldier fly larvae, they only live for 7 days as a fly, where housefly only lives for 2 to 3 months. This short life cycle means that in 7 days, they have to be able to mate and reproduce. So they only have one purpose, which is to mate and reproduce during the time of being a fly. And from there is when the most important part of this life cycle happens. So from the larvae, they have super hungry and super huge appetite. So they can basically consume any type of organic waste. And from here, when we feed them a lot of organic waste, they will grow into big, fat, matured larvae in just a very short time, which is 7 to 10 days time. And at the time when they're matured is also when they have the highest protein content. And this is when we realize, a lot of animals actually can eat this as a very sustainable source of protein. So after the fly and the baby larvae, at the mature larvae stage is when we harvest them and turn them into protein powder, and then introduce it into feed formulations. But because they eat a lot, they also have to poo a lot. So the poo is what we call as frass, which becomes a completely natural and very high nutrient organic fertilizers. So we can use it on a lot of nursery farms, in Malaysia's case specifically as a huge palm oil exporter. We can use it in palm oil nurseries, in durian nurseries as well, along with all the other fruits and vegetables. So from here, we see that by introducing black soldier fly, we can then treat organic waste, food waste for our case specifically, and divert it from landfill, so reducing carbon emission. And then when the larvae has fully grown, this is where we can harvest them and turn them into high protein animal feed. And the fertilizers that comes from the pool can also empower farmers to get better quality or even completely organic fertilizers. So with this, we are kind of solving or killing three birds with one stone. So we are mitigating climate change. We're achieving a circular economy by turning waste into wealth, and also looking at how it can serve the food security. So when it comes to the feed part, in Malaysia, we have a big challenge when it comes to chicken and egg security, especially during COVID times. And because chicken and eggs are subsidized protein in Malaysia. So ultimately, because currently as a net importer, Malaysia or a lot of countries will have to look at resources of how we can reduce this import or try and produce feed or rear our chickens from a local manner. So this is when our solution can come in and provide not just high quality, but something that's very affordable when it comes to chicken feed. So based on our current prices, we are around 50% cheaper than other black soldier fly players when it comes to the animal feed. But also as compared to normal soy and corn feed, we can achieve 30 to 40% cheaper as well. So that makes it something not just high quality, but also something that's very affordable when it comes to our food security. So that's kind of the life cycle of black soldier fly and how it really serves when it comes to the impact that we envision.
Do you have any other sort of ideas around this whole black soldier fly
Yeah.
life cycle, other uses?
Yes. So with the larvae, there are more and more research upcoming, or even commercialization when it comes to the utilization of different substances. So one of the example is what we call as chitosan, so or chitosan, however way you pronounce it. So from here is where we can turn this kind of substances that we harvest from the larvae shell into different kind of pharmaceutical or cosmetics or biomedical products, because it has this thing called antimicrobial biopeptide. So it helps to kill off any types of pathogens or increase the immune system of any beings that consume it. So from here, we are also looking at different types of potential when it comes to creating more sustainable human food. A lot of countries that we've been to, we've seen Thailand, Vietnam. Sometimes in Japan, we've seen people actually eat insects, sometimes in Africa and South America as well. So knowing that insects has been delicacies for certain cultures, we know that in the future, if really we're running out of more delicious food, we are exploring some of the other ways of creating human protein or human protein snacks or food using the black soldier fly larvae. And coming from Malaysia as a what we call as a Muslim country, a lot of times halal is also something that our clients or our as B2B clients want to look at. So we are also looking at how we can proof the entire halal status when it comes to the larvae that has been harvested, because sometimes they might have mixture of non-halal food in the organic waste that they eat. And then the other thing that we're also looking at with the entire kind of ecosystem is the carbon traceability of waste. Because currently when waste goes to landfill, that's it, all the carbon emission gets released to the atmosphere. But with our solution, we are looking at how we can, by diverting waste into our solution, how can we trace the entire kind of waste to resources carbon traceability and use that as a way for carbon credits and then use for carbon trading as well. So these are different kind of directions that we're looking at when it comes to the innovation within this field of business.
So you have this ability to use the black soldier fly larvae, right? And you can harvest the waste from the larvae as fertilizer. You can use the shell perhaps in some kind of biomedical application. The larvae itself could be food for humans, right? A source of protein. You're able to harvest the larva also as a protein source with animal feed, things like that. You're able to take bio waste because these things eat bio-based products, right? So let's say it's a restaurant or hotel or something, and they have a lot of biologically based waste that these larvae can eat it. So it's a way of getting rid of waste, right? And you know, and clearly it'll help in this kind of carbon life cycle, right? And things like that. So let's say a hotel wants to use you or a municipality wants to use you. How do they use you? What is your company product look like?
Yeah. So we are currently based in Malaysia, and majority of the operations are based here as well. And the way that we work with our clients, there are two different methods. One, a decentralized solution. We usually use a containerized kind of system to be parked at where our clients are. So then they can treat waste at source. They will just have to roll down the food waste from the kitchen into the unit, and from here the food waste will be grinded, and then the larvae will come in to eat up all the food waste that has been grinded. And then in 7 days, they get harvested, and then they go on a cycle basis to bring in food waste and then harvest. That's the decentralized solution. And usually this will run on a slightly smaller scale. So say, for example, a hotel building with buffet style food waste, then it's suitable for that kind of size. But when it comes to larger waste generators like municipals, like shopping malls, like chain supermarkets, or a lot of chain, the waste that gets generated on a daily basis goes by tonnage, on tonnage rather than on kg basis. So from here is when we introduce our centralized solution. So we will need a slightly bigger piece of land. Usually all these food waste will still be collected by the waste collector. So the truck will go in, collect all this food waste, and then they get sent to our centralized solution plant. And that's when they will basically just see us like landfill, because they literally send it out, and they don't really have to see what happened afterwards. But what we do is we charge them based on the normal waste tipping fees, like how landfills do. And then from here, we convert them into the animal feed. So in a way, yes, we are processing food waste. We are also producing animal feed and also fertilizers. So we're kind of doing two things at the same time. And in 7 days, when everything has been converted, then we also harvest them into animal feed, process into chicken feed or fish feed, shrimp feed, and other types of cat food, dog food. And then the fertilizers, we sell them directly to larger scale farms for plantation purposes. And this is also where we have a bigger kind of breeding ground for the entire life cycle. And because food waste from larger waste generators will come in truck by trucks, so ultimately, especially when it comes to our scaling up model, this is where we will then kind of easily scale and repeat our models across
For some reason, I lost your audio.
Yeah. So with the centralized model, so the waste generators will send their waste into us, and then in 7 days, all the products that have been produced will then be sold to either farmers or plantation owners. So that's how the centralized model works. So, and if we look at some of the numbers in just purely in Malaysia, currently about 17,000 tons of food waste goes to every single day. And these are basically waste that we can capture and convert into animal feed and fertilizers. So at our scale right now, we obtain a piece of land. This is currently under construction right now, which is expected to start kind of operations by end of this year. So with this plan, we will start treating 15 tons of food waste. And then later on, we will replicate this type of model into different townships, different states around Malaysia. Currently, we also have some joint venture projects on Borneo side of Malaysia, which we will be treating large volumes of palm oil waste and sago waste. So these are agricultural waste to be turned into animal feed as well. So one thing that we realized, especially when we're running on the scaled model, is how this actually helps a lot of big plantation owners who are generating large scale of waste on a daily basis, turning what they usually see as pure waste dumped to the roadside into a second kind of revenue type. So literally turning their waste into money. So this is also one business model that we're approaching, especially not just large plantation owners, but also coming from a state entity, coming from kind of agriculture, corporate entities as well.
Let's see. So so we missed a portion of it. Hopefully, we captured it now. So what I'm hearing is you have a decentralized model where you can have a smaller entity, and a smaller entity can get this sort of container, lease a container from you, I guess, or something like that, and that's a waste processor, and it could be for an hotel or. But if you have a lot of waste, then they can go to a central facility, like where you operate as a service, where you can do the waste processing, convert into proteins and things like that. It also sounds like you got, for really large operations, like you said, plantations and things like that, you can also do conversions for them as well, and do all of the really scaling what hotels would do on a decentralized basis, and scaling what you even do on a centralized basis. So it sounds like you got an agricultural way of doing revenue, kind of a municipal-based way of doing revenue, large supermarket chains and things like that. And then you can do smaller entities. In all of this way that you have processing waste and creating products and selling those products, are your clients mainly based in Malaysia, or are they international?
Currently, for our waste solution, it's very focused in Malaysia, but we are providing our technology services quite internationally. The furthest away, I would say Brazil, which we started last year. So we've got clients there that we are providing our technical services to. So with our international expansion, we are very happy and open to work with local partners. Because Black Certify solutions are pretty much everywhere now in the world. Maybe not in the coldest nations in the world right now, but a lot of countries can and have a lot of Black Certify solutions. So we can come in as a technology support, but also with our downstream products, we also are working with one of our most recent clients, partners in Vietnam when it comes to aqua feed development. So we are doing some farm trials and also production in Vietnam for kind of downstream products in that sense.
So when other countries are using your services, do you license your technology and then they use like local containers and materials and things like that, or do you manufacture then ship the entire unit to them? How does that work?
So yes, either by licensing or sometimes we do joint venture partnerships. So then there will be revenue sharing models from there as well.
Right. And then when they build these facilities and they source the black soldier fly, you're really giving them the know-how, and then they would build these things locally.
So we don't really have to bring the larvae from Malaysia. There are ways that we can capture the local black soldier fly larvae from that country as well.
Right. So then really what you're doing is you're giving them the know-how of how to put these things together, right? And then they can use local containers, local production facilities, things like that.
Yeah, or if on skilled basis, then all the local machineries as well.
Yeah. So what would be the cost, for example, for a hotel to lease one of these containers or, products that you sell? What would be the cost to set up a centralized facility?
Yeah. Currently in Malaysia, we are renting it for around, I would say, let me convert it very quickly in my head. Around $1,000 to $1 to $2,000, depending on the scale and also depending on the kind of machinery equipped within the container per month. And then they get the larvae, downstream, everything that are all fully owned by them. So with that, they can also basically sell it directly with their either kitchen suppliers or some of the urban farmers that are surrounding them. Usually for Malaysia, our cases, if they don't know farmers on their own, we can provide our list, our partners with for them. So then they sell directly to the farmers. And then for kind of centralized model, it also comes down to the scale in terms of how much input of waste that goes into the plant. So, and also depending on different countries' conditions, some countries prefer to have less automized system. Some countries prefer to have fully automized systems. So we do kind of customized design for clients and partners who have this skilled operations requirements. So the prices can range between around 300K AUD, USD, all the way to our biggest clients currently will be looking at around, let me just convert it, around 3 million USD. So that can go up to 40 to 50 tons of processing waste processing capacity every day. But yeah, depending on the scale that they are doing and how automized it is, we have a very customized pricing for everyone.
So what prevents somebody from copying you? And then
So I think for the time being, how we usually see the market, because Black Soda Fly technology is not rocket science. There are definitely certain ways that we're doing it that makes it more affordable and also makes it more efficient and effective. But there are, I'm sure, a lot of biotechnologists out there who are trying to innovate in this field as well. So the way that we protect our technology, we have applied for a lot of patents in terms of some of the very efficient and effective ways that we do the entire process. There are also a lot of secret know-how that we kind of keep it to ourselves. But I think one thing that makes someone a winner in this field is first of all, I think for us is the early market adopter. And being able to kind of tie up with the right supply chain players within the industry is the key of winning in this Black Soda Fly industry. And a lot of times we see it as 3 key success factors to be successful in our field and also to make sure that you're not easily replaceable in this field. First of all, is the upstream feedstock. So who can secure the upstream feedstock at the most affordable price or without any cost will be one of the winning factor when it comes to winning in this industry. Second of all, it will be the technology. So we know there are a lot of not necessarily engineers who are in this field. So I think with engineering backgrounds, it helps us to have a slightly higher chance when it comes to creating innovations that are efficient and scalable, especially in an industrialized scale. Third of all is the off-taker. So whether or not we can find very kind of long partnerships when it comes to off-taking is a very important important field of being the success factors. And securing off-taker will come down to the competitiveness of the pricing as well. So how all 3 factors play out will determine whether or not someone can succeed in this industry. And I think there are different elements that help us to achieve these 3 different factors, and that helps us to be still be surviving and profitable today, I suppose.
yeah, so can you describe some of the validation you received? So there were really 2 questions then. External validation that you received, that could be like winning prizes or being recognized that you have exceptional technology and then a solution. And then that's one question. Then the last question would be, what would be your recommendations to the audience?
Yeah. What type of recommendation? Sorry.
So, or questions you want to leave the audience. So, do you have advice you want to give the audience?
Okay.
Hearing me by recommendation.
So, yeah. First question, when it comes to validation, I think the biggest validation will come down to definitely our traction and our clients. So currently we're working with chain supermarkets in Malaysia and also working very closely with different government bodies and also working with different shopping malls in Malaysia when it comes to the scale operations. And also with our decentralized solution on a smaller scale, we are working with quite a few universities in terms of their adoption on campus. We're working with different schools, primary or secondary schools. We are working with a theme park, which we're looking to expand as well. And also we have hotel chains that are using our solutions. So we see that the growing demand, especially for Malaysia's case, the growing demand when it comes to sustainable solutions is rising. People having more and more awareness in this kind of solutions really helped growing, because really, if we came in a few years ago, pre-COVID, no one has really cared as much as sustainable today compared to back then. So I think the trend really helps, but also the fact that we have created something that is affordable and really something that helps them align with their internal either compliance goals or financial goals can really help. And second of all, I think the downstream offtake part is also the bigger validations as well, because we know that with our price competitiveness, not just compared to other players, but compared to existing feed or existing kind of downstream products, really helps us to make sure that not only are we creating quality, but also something that is pricing-wise very competitive. So these are the two key validation factors. I would say a bonus would be getting a lot of support coming from different government authorities and government policies, because we know something, we know what we're doing right now. Definitely, yes, we want to impact the world, but second of all, having that support coming from government policies really help to accelerate the vision that we want to create as well. So that has really been a big step forward, especially when it comes to embarking on a completely new industry in the country. So having this support has been a really big factor when it comes to accelerating. And I think advice for audience, there's a motto that we truly live by in Atomo, and this has been a quote that I think I truly live by even when I was younger as well. This quote is called "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I know there are a lot of impact change makers out there who really want to create positive impact to the world. And I know sometimes we don't know where to start, but I think as long as we're doing something, sometimes this is a snowball effect that keeps rolling and gets bigger. And sometimes when you meet people who think the same, and you can create something that's innovative and something that's even greater impact, just like how my journey has been. And I think, yeah, just never stop creating that positive change that we envision for the world.
Yeah, and then you have the additional validation. You'd be winning awards or being selected by different groups. I mean, I met your group at the WITS World Cup, with the inaugural World Cup, where you were in the top three. And in fact, you finished second, right? So it's very close.
Yeah.
When you're in the, or both by Malaysia, by the way, I believe, right? So
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations on all the success, and thank you for coming in and sharing your insights with my audience.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It was a great pleasure being able to see you again after so many months, in fact. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.